that this is the first installment of a series of three presentations that we'll be having for the life of our church. And all of this is in preparation for our annual meeting, which will be our 131st on Valentine's Day, February 14th, here on Zoom. The reason why we do this is because our annual meeting is full of so much information that it's often difficult to have questions answered, sort of to be able to get into the weeds of these topics. And so what we wanted to do is have times such as these where we can have those more detailed conversations so that we give space for our community to answer questions and also to really get a handle of the reality of our church and its life. For those of you who may be new to Episcopal polity and the Episcopal Church and how we do business in the life of our churches, every church in our tradition has in its bylaws the need for an annual parish meeting. And this meeting is an opportunity for the church to elect new vestry members, to appoint and to elect those who will be representing the church in diocesan conventions and other bodies, and to also present our yearly budget. And so it's canonical for us to be able to gather as the church. What is new is the platform in which we're using Zoom because of the pandemic. And so in some ways, I think this will also be a historical moment for the next generation of St. Luke's 50, 75 years from now. If they want to be curious about how does St. Luke's respond to the pandemic of 2020, we'll have a record of it in the life of our community. So at this time, I want to invite Perry and Jean to unmute. I'm also going to spotlight their screens so that you can see them. And I invite folks to put their screens on gallery view. That will be an opportunity for you to see everyone. Okay, and I'm also going to spotlight my screen as well. And I'm also going to now pull up our presentation.
Thank you, Reverend Sierra. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's Coffee Hour. I'm Jean Griffith, Senior Warden, and today we'll discuss our 2020 financial results.
Try this.
We had some revenue highlights during 2020. First of all, you all are amazing. We had solid giving during 2020, and I thank you for your commitment to St. Luke's. Several practices really made a difference for us. Many members continued to make regular and generous contributions. Some members paid the annual pledge at the beginning of the year. That gave us a really good boost at the start of 2020. A number of our members started online giving, so we had a steady stream of revenue. And again, that really helped us a lot. And then we had contributions for special projects, for example, for the burglar alarm. And so all that was so wonderful. Thank you all, and God bless you for your generosity. Second, the Paycheck Protection Program. St. Luke's applied for and received a PPP loan. Perry and Mike were just right on it and applied immediately and got us that application in. We were approved, and St. Luke's received over $50,000 as a loan, and that loan we expect will be forgiven because it was used perfectly to the government specifications. And so Perry and Mike, thank you for that. That really helped us a lot. Finally, we reduced the budgeted draws on our reserves. You may not remember, but from our last year's budget presentation, we had planned quarterly draws on the reserves. And because of your generosity, because of the PPP loan, and because of reduced expenses during our facility closure, we were able to just use 2 of the draws. And so that was a blessing. And Perry will cover more of the details on that for you. And Reverend Sierra, could we move to the next slide, please? For 2021, we have some revenue highlights to discuss. First of all, because of the strong performance the PPP loan and reduced expenses, we were able to be in a strong operating cash position at the end of 2020. And so the vestry decided to carry $20,000 over for 2021 expenses. And you'll see that on the budget as Perry presents that to you. Our stewardship campaign was amazing. Thank you for your generosity, and great thanks to the excellent leadership of Lamar Talbert and his stewardship team, Mary Walmsley and Katie Mazarov. St. Luke's had a very successful 2021 stewardship campaign. We reached our goal of 127 pledges, and the pledge monies increased by almost $50,000. That is amazing. This was a COVID year, and look what you did. Miraculous, truly wonderful. So thank you for that. And Reverend Sierra, if we could move to the next slide, that would be great. You might be a little curious, how have we done in pledges in other years, and how does 2021 compare? Well, here's a brief history, and I'll try to be brief on this. Stewardship campaigns always occur at the end of a calendar year, and so we get the number of pledging units, and we also get the amounts pledged for the coming year. So as we look at the pledge graph here, in 2016, that was the final year of Father Doug's time at St. Luke's. We had strong pledge support that year and strong giving for 2016. But during 2016, he also announced that he was retiring and departing St. Luke's. And so you'll see that there was we had 159 pledging units for 2016. For 2017, with Father Doug's departure, the pledging units dropped to 145 for the year 2017. 2017, we were in interim and in transition, and we were in search for Reverend Sierra, and that was a hard year for St. Luke's. There are no two ways about that. And so as we looked forward to 2018, and when we were pledging, we still were in transition. We didn't know about Reverend Sierra yet. We had a significant drop in pledging units. We fell to 108 pledging units. February 2018, Reverend Sierra joined St. Luke's, and so she was with us for just about 6 months. When it was time for our stewardship campaign, we had 114 pledges, so we were starting to pick up. People were gaining confidence, getting to know Reverend Sierra, and feeling good about St. Luke's again. In that year, we had Reverend Sierra for the whole year. We had an additional pledge that year, but we had really amazingly strong contributions that year. Remarkable. And so then for our 2021 campaign, we just, really did it. 127 pledges and over $50,000 additional. And so thanks be to God, and thank you for your generosity and growth during that year. Reverend Sierra, can we move to the next page? Now, here's the 2021 expense budget highlights. The first, and Perry will cover this in detail, but here are three important features to think about. First of all, we had salary increases for our staff in the 2021 budget. And for some of you, you might be saying that's remarkable. Last year, our staff had no salary increases due to our budget restrictions. And so they went a whole year, and, unfortunately, that also ended up being a COVID year, so it was doubly hard. And all of our staff and all of our programs are intact, and so I'm very grateful to our staff for that. But salary increases for staff are included in the 2021 budget. Each year, each parish in Colorado makes monthly contributions to the diocese, and that supports the staffing and the services of the diocese. And St. Luke's has been giving the same amount for several years. Because we had a significant increase in our pledge contributions, we nudged up our contribution to the diocese this year. And then our third item I want to talk about is we have budgeted for a new position on our staff, and that is for a digital specialist. Now, before COVID, St. Luke's had never used online except for our website. Once COVID hit, online was the only way we could gather for worship and for formation. So starting March 22nd, and on March 22nd, we had our first online service. So from March 13th to March 22nd, we had to find, learn, and start using all new technology that was brand new. Reverend Sierra took it all on and started it then, and she has done it ever since. We still have several months ahead that we'll be needing to continue with online worship, and online worship will continue after that. That has, throughout COVID and going forward, online worship has become an aspect of how we are present to people who want to be part of our community. Since March, though, members have discovered that participating online for worship, for education, is really very convenient and makes it far more accessible. And so a digital specialist is needed now to take over video production responsibilities, and will be needed once we return to worship to run the live streaming equipment during our worship service, record the services, and get them posted online. Most importantly, the addition of the digital specialist gives significant time back to Reverend Sierra, and that is really important. She has been burning the candle at, all ends and in the middle too. And so that digital specialist will be a real benefit to our whole community. So Perry, I'll turn it over to you. Next part's yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Sierra, for changing the slide. I want to start with an explanation about providing information to you. In today's brief summary presentation, I'm going to have very little detail to present to you. But I want you to know that in a future LARC, the 2020 annual results will be presented with lots of numbers, as will the 2021 budget. And so once I finish this brief presentation, if you have questions, I will try to answer them. But I know that the more numbers we all see, the more questions we have. And so as we go forward, when you look at the information you will be receiving in the LARC, I want you to please feel free to contact me either directly or through the church office or through Jean or Sierra, and I will try to provide whatever additional information you want as we go forward. Let me use this first slide to summarize the very strong year that St. Luke's had in 2020. As you look at this graph, the two red columns represent the budget as it was adopted at the end of 2019. You will see that the revenue budget, the two left-hand columns, we had budgeted to receive just over $414,000 in 2020. The way we ran the operations, and because of the wonderful support of this community, the actual receipts and available revenues were 405. But I want to point out to you that the actual was below the budgeted revenue because we were able to reduce our draw from our reserves at the Colorado Episcopal Foundation by $35,000. That's an astounding thing for us to have been able to accomplish, I think, during a pandemic and a time when we could not meet in person. As Jean has said, it is because of the generosity of this community that we had that sort of strong revenue performance in 2020. The two columns on the right-hand part of the graph deal with our operating expenses. And again, the red column is our 2020 budget. The blue column is our actual operating expenses. And you'll notice that there is about a $60,000 difference. It looks like our expenses were about $60,000 below budget. That is because of the item that Gene discussed, the payroll protection plan loan that we received from the federal government. Those loans were extended to allow businesses to retain their staff, and we were able to retain and pay all of the church staff and use those funds to pay the salaries. And so those salaries and benefits for our employees are not included in the expenses. So we paid all of our bills. We just used a different pot of money for it. But what that shows is that with expenses of $366,000 and revenues of $414, we were in an excellent position at the end of the year. Sierra, if I may ask you to move to the next slide. I want to give you a little bit more information about 2020 budget and 2021 budget and mention with a little more detail some of the items that Gene was talking about. Our pledge and regular giving money, in addition to the pledges, we have supporters who regularly contribute. We count on that support, and so we include that. Our pledge and regular expectation for 2020, we budgeted $331,000. For 2021, the vestry has adopted a budget that shows $365,000 plus a little in pledged and regular giving. The next line of numbers, plate offerings. We don't know when we are going to be able to be back in in-person worship. And so the vestry did not budget any revenue from the plate offerings that came in on a normal Sunday morning. If we get back in church, there may be some revenue in 2021 on that line, but we didn't think it was safe to guess what that number might be. You will see that there is a small reduction in the miscellaneous revenue category. That item is donations for flowers, special offerings. We hope some of that will continue. We estimated a reduction, but still some revenue from those sources in the future. And you'll notice our contribution from reserves. That's the amount we budget to take out of the Colorado Episcopal Foundation. We're leaving that just about flat for 2021 as compared to 2020. And then Gene mentioned the carryover we had because of an operating surplus at the end of 2020. And we have budgeted $24,000 of that operating revenue surplus from 2020 to be used to meet expenses in 2021. At the end of that, we have, as you will see, budgeted total revenue of $463,000, almost $464,000. Sierra, if I may ask you to change to the next slide. Let me give you a thumbnail of our expenses. Salaries, Gene mentioned that we were giving staff increases. There is a slight increase in the total salary line for the church. You will notice that we are budgeting a new position, that is the media specialist that Gene was talking about. And whenever we increase base salaries, we increase benefits and insurance costs. That's shown. You will notice that the program, all of the things in the program budget lines of the church is slightly decreased. Part of that is because there are some savings when we are not meeting in person. We are continuing the programs of the church, and that slight increase is just because we're not using some supplies. Administration, there are a few items that cause an increase in the budget 2021 versus 2020. Utilities, service for online access, increased that some. And finally, you'll notice that there is a slight increase in the building and grounds We are expecting some increased maintenance costs and a small amount of utilities increase for 2021. Finally, that budget came out at $464,000. It's almost spot on to our projected revenue. I think the vestry, in working through the budget with me and the finance committee, has been very cautious but very optimistic. I think we can have a very successful year financially in the congregation, and my hope is that we will have some excess revenues again, and we can once again decrease the amount of money that we need to withdraw from the foundation to meet operating expenses. But we will see how the year goes as it moves along. Let me ask now, that is all of the information that I had to give you at this meeting. Let me ask you if there are questions that I can try to answer now, and I'll ask Sierra to sort of moderate what's going on. I'll try to answer, or I'll try to direct you where you can find that information when you receive some additional things. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Perry and Jean. I now want to have an opportunity for questions that folks may have. So at this time, if are folks able to hear me? Oh, yes. Great. Oh, great. So at this time, if you are joining by phone, you can press *6 to unmute. Because you're unable to see folks raising their hand, we'll give you priority. If you are joining by webcam and can wave your hand or to signify a question, we can call on you by name. So at this time, if there are any questions for the life of the community, I see Renee and Tom Schwartz. Renee, we'll call on you first.
I have to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I didn't see that whole page, all of the figures. May we get a copy of that, or is that coming in the LARC? I don't want to.
Yes, Renee. Yes, thank you for that. So all of the figures that were shown will be part of our annual report, which will be the February edition of the LARC, where they will all be shown out. We're also going to have a copy of this presentation available, the recording, on our Friday email. We'll also include the PowerPoint that Perry and Jean just went through for folks to be able to see as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. Tom Schwartz.
Perry and Jean, just a question. I don't know. I know we don't know the answer to this yet, or I don't think we do. I think in President Biden's proposed COVID relief package, there's another opportunity for PPP in 2021. Are you aware of that? And if so, will we apply?
Thank you, Tom. This is Perry, if I may. Yes, there is a second round of payroll protection plan programs. However, it's one of those good news, bad news situations. One of the first criteria for participating in the second round of loans is that you have to have had a 25% decrease in revenue during the previous year or PPP plan term in order to qualify for the second round. And we did not have that sort of revenue decline. So because of the generosity of the community, we can't participate in the loan program, but because of your generosity, we don't need it as much. So we have looked into that, and we are not eligible, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. I want to give the floor now to Blanche Smith. Blanche, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that the Finance Committee and Perry has done. I have only one question right now. Is the 2021 budget a transparency budget?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little, Blanche. Is it a what?
A transparency budget. In other words, are each item listed separately? If so, that's transparency. But if they're grouped together, that is not transparency.
No,
So I was wondering if it was a transparent budget, because that's what we're used to.
No, ma'am, that's right. And I apologize. We did not present that full breakout of the full budget because of the detail that we couldn't get across. We didn't think in a Zoom meeting, but that is included in the forthcoming budget and LARC that you will receive when it comes
Well, I
in the February.
appreciate that. And I hope people realize, Perry, how hard you have worked. Because being a treasurer, you do what you're told. And I think you've done an outstanding job, and I appreciate what you've done.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you, ma'am.
You're
That's
welcome.
Thank you, Blanche. Are there other questions for Perry or Jean on this topic? If you are joining by phone, you can press *6. If you are joining by webcam, you can just give a wave and you can have the floor. Yes, Bob Loudermilk, go ahead and unmute. You have the floor.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I worry about us reaching into reserves, $70,000. We only have a limited number of years that we can continue reaching into reserves. Our response is to simply encourage people to make a larger offering, right?
Let me see if I can start this, and certainly Jean and Sierra may very well want to participate too, Bob. You're absolutely correct. I think in the discussions in vestry and the discussions in the Finance Committee, there is a general recognition that that percentage withdrawal from the foundation is long-term unsustainable.
Yeah.
Now, I think I will give you one of the positions that I think is appropriate, and that is that some withdrawal from foundations in the same way that people withdraw from their personal investments at a very low rate is appropriate, but whether that's 4% or 5%, we have lots of finance people talking about that, but we're above that. And we need to encourage additional giving to support that in the future, to support operations. I think the vestry believes that the congregation will support the church's activities. We will continue to work hard in future stewardship campaigns, the way Lamar and his team did such wonderful work this year. We all have the goal of reducing those withdrawals from the foundation, but we also have the important goal of maintaining the church's operations and service. So that's the balancing act we're dealing with.
And Perry, just one additional note to that. Another route that we need to take is to look at growth of our church. During a COVID year, it was not very practical to really try to grow the church significantly. It's pretty hard to do when we can't be together. And so we are beginning activities for growth this year. And so we're hoping with minding our budget. We did a good job of that last year, and we were able to not take 50% of the draws. So that was a positive for us. And we'd like to be able to be that careful again this year and encourage You are generous, and so thank you for that. I'm so grateful. And we just want to bring more people in to join us. St. Luke's has a lot of really good news, and we want to share it.
No, we're not muted.
Bob, do you have a follow-up, or did that answer your question?
It does answer my question. The one thing I was wondering about, how much are our reserves?
The most recent report we've received, and it'll be reflected when you see the reports in the LARC, but it was just right at $970,000.
That's
Okay,
an amazing reserve.
okay.
Yes, it is.
I feel better.
The church is blessed to have that sort of reserves, and I think it is not customary for churches our size to have that sort of resource. It's because we're very grateful for the support of people who have helped build that reserve.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We now have a question from Josh Moore. Josh, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Question about in-person. I know it would be probably outside, but I also know that there are probably talks now of when that can happen. My hope and prayer is that when that can happen, maybe some of that in-person structure would help grow some of our community and some of the worship that does want to gather together. I know that's a lot of talk and a lot of details and safety concerns, but hopefully with the spring and summer, is that a discussion that will remain on the table as far as those that want to possibly gather outside? I don't even know if I'm going to be part of that, but I just want to know if that's being talked about.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh. That's a great question. We definitely want to utilize all of our options for in-person gatherings. In 2020, we were able to meet in person safely for about a month and a half during the fall when the COVID numbers were lower, the weather, all the sort of stars aligned where there was appropriate weather and the cases were low, and we were able to take advantage of our space in our courtyard for worship. And then the weather got colder. I'm really thankful, and our vestry meets today. And so one of the things that we want to do is be able to go ahead and begin preparations for our church of what that means when we can move to in-person, whether it be outdoor or indoor. Of course, outdoor is the most accessible option because of the building modifications that will be necessary indoors. We do have some modifications that have been made, such as a generous donation for air filtration machines within the church. We have 7 of them within the church to help with the movement of air. Dr. Joseph Kay, who is on our Regathering Task Force, is doing the testing around the CO2 levels within the church to see how those levels increase or decrease with those meeting in the church, with the windows open, so that we can know what our ventilation looks like. And then we're going to have a team of people that I'm hoping to pull together that can help see us to making our building appropriate and ready for us to meet indoors, and what that looks like, both short-term and long-term. So yes, we are definitely looking at how we can include an in-person offering in our worship opportunities. And then there'll also be more information to come for the actual season of Lent and how we can take advantage of drive-through communion, and even opening the church during the week for quiet prayers. We're looking at all of those options so that we know for so many people, the church is a part of their spirituality. So how we can make that church accessible to our community, we're really interested in. So great question, Josh. And I want to, Jean, if there's anything else you want to add to that. All right, thank you. Other questions? These are wonderful questions. Yes, Tom, go ahead. You have the floor.
Sorry to speak up again, but I just want to put in a little plug here. You mentioned 2 ways, Perry and Jean, of increasing funds. One would be current members and that increasing their pledge and their offering. The other was increasing number of people at church. And I just want to plug to go into people's mind of thinking there is another way. And that is, as we do, especially those of us that are getting older, our estate planning, that we can remember St. Luke's in our estate planning that wouldn't be a right away, but it would be something that down the road could increase the money we've got in the foundation.
Tom, Perry, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. If I may jump in, Tom, I appreciate that. I mentioned being grateful for the support of people in the past who have allowed our reserves at the foundation to reach the level that they are. And that's primarily how that has happened, Tom. The church has a long-term gifts committee that is chaired by Bill Emig and Ted Wolverton. That committee has slowed down because they can't visit with people during the period of the crisis, but they are warming back up again. You will be hearing more and more about the long-term gifts through estates or bequests in the future. But Tom is absolutely right. That is a wonderful way to support our church long-term. And we will ask people to please think prayerfully about that in the future. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Other questions or comments on this topic? These are great conversations.
Reverend Sierra?
Yes, Pat, you have the floor.
Oh my gosh, you recognize my voice. That's scary. I'm not sure this is quite in the confines, so you can tell me if it isn't. But I was sitting here thinking about our own outreach and not just what we're doing as St. Luke's, but also what the diocese is doing in terms of all the needs of people who are without food or without shelter, and I know that there's a lot of things I've thought about trying to volunteer for are things that you really can't do, masking even, but I just felt like I know that I understand the process of giving to the diocese. I just wonder if they tell us what they're doing.
Thank you, Pat. I want to let Jean speak to this because Jean has been so wonderful in being involved in the diocesan gatherings of wardens across the diocese. And Jean, can you speak to Pat's point?
Yes, Pat, thank you so much for that question. It's a great question. And the diocese has a robust outreach. There are so many things. What I would like to do is let me get the official report out and include that in our next e-news, because there's a list of probably 20 different organizations across the state, and whether that's housing for the elderly, it is food, it is schooling, it is it's a whole variety of things, but it really is very impressive that our one little diocese has a way to reach out in so many ways. And it's also supporting some of the young people who are in the Episcopal Service Corps, and the work that those young people are doing is so impressive. It is truly amazing, and what a blessing. And many of those young people who join the Episcopal Service Corps, I've observed have gone on to take on full-time roles in the church, whether it's through ordination or ministry, full-time ministry. So truly, there's so much support for the life and the well-being of people here in Colorado through those donations.
And just to add to that, Jean, not only on a diocesan level, but also on a regional level, I serve on the executive committee of our High Plains region, which is, for those of you who may have attending the Episcopal Church in other states or dioceses. Deaneries is another way they're called, or convocations. But here in our diocese, we call them regions. And they are the gathering of churches in similar geographic areas. And so our High Plains region is also a source of grants for organizations that are based within our neighborhoods, such as Women's Homeless Initiative and other organizations that are helping with homelessness, with food scarcity, and with education. And so it's beautiful that the giving of our church supports outreach on various levels, both from a state level, a regional level, and then our own outreach committee that is also doing the work of how we can remain involved and be the hands and feet of God in the world. So it's a wonderful that how much of our funds are used for that purpose. So thank you, Pat, for that question. Other questions on this topic for finances. Again, all of the numbers that we see today will be included in our annual report, which will be the February edition of the LARC that you will receive. If you receive the LARC by mail, you will also receive the annual report by mail. If you are accustomed to getting your LARC by email, you will receive it through an email that will be sent out at the beginning of February. And it will include all of these numbers in depth. Other questions for the life of the community? Yes, Deacon Linda, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Perry and Jean, for your presentation. I wonder if there could be any light shed on this idea of a technician that wants to be hired to help with the audio and the online Zoom presentations. Any thoughts you could just share with us on what you're looking for?
Well, we're looking for someone who can run all of our live streaming equipment and run that during service. Once we are back in church, we will still have Zoom and live streaming while we have people in the church, and that will be our published service. And so right now, all the parts and pieces that go into our service are all recorded. And so all those recorded parts and pieces, Reverend Sierra stitches together through editing on all the equipment and technology that she uses. But this digital specialist would need to be able to put all of our recorded segments together. They would have to be there on Sunday morning to run the equipment and get that posted on YouTube, because that's where we make that service available. They would be busy during the week with recording different segments that need to be stitched in to our Sunday service, so that can be part of the service as well. They would be developing, new ways for us to be more efficient with this, and also figuring out how we can possibly include some of our formation services that get filmed so that they can also be available online. Right now, we have those recorded on Zoom, but, no, we don't even. We participate via Zoom, but they're not recorded. And so, all of our education is, you have to be there to be able to participate. And so there's much more outreach that we can make available to members of our community through the skill of that person. Right now, we cannot accommodate, Reverend Sierra is our pastor. She's not our video, and she's been our video production person too. But, there's a lot that goes into that. And so, we need that person to take that on. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jean. So presumably this is a part-time position you're looking for?
It is a part-time.
And what's the timing? What are you thinking of time-wise?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
I'm serious about that, really, as soon as possible. but we've got to get the right person. One of the most important things, two things that are important about filling this position. They need the technical capability and they need to be absolutely reliable. Because if this person doesn't show up on Sunday morning, we have no service to share online. And so for me, those are really key
Thank you.
aspects in hiring.
Jean?
Reverend Sierra?
Hold on one moment, Blanche. Jan Jacobs had a question, and then I want to go back to you, Blanche. Hold on one moment. Jan
you.
Jacobs, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is that considered a contract position or is that considered a position with benefits?
It would be considered a contract position because of the hours. It is below the 20-hour mark within the Episcopal Church that we have to begin offering benefits for lay and clergy. So it would be below that line. Thank you, Jane. Blanche, you have the floor.
Yes, I have a suggestion, Reverend Sierra.
Yes.
If you're still looking for a digital specialist, it would be my suggestion to contact the TV stations because they have people on their staff who do that, and maybe they could recommend someone who would do it as a part-time job.
Amen, Blanche. That's a wonderful idea. And if you are welcome to contact them too, Blanche, and tell them who you are and who you represent and that we need help. And so that would be glorious. The interesting thing about this is that every church is in this boat. This is not a unique situation. And so these folks who have the capability are in high demand. And so it's really a blessing if we can find someone who has the space within their schedule to be able to be dependable and help us get our worship out to both those who are in person and those who are online so that we can put forth one service for our whole community. I saw another hand. I think Reverend Sandy Blake had something to contribute, and I also see Bill has his hand raised. So I first want to give the floor to Reverend Sandy and then Bill. Reverend Sandy, are you still with us? Okay, I don't see Reverend Sandy. Bill, did you have a question? I see your hand is raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Yeah. I was just thinking that, another option that you could use is, I don't know if you could put an ad out on like Dice or Indeed type of websites for that, because, there's a lot of technical people out on those websites that would be looking out there for opportunities.
Thank you, Bill. That's a wonderful idea, and we will take advantage of that. Thank you. I now see Reverend Sandy. Reverend Sandy, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm back. I'm just curious with the stock market raging in unheard of heights. I just wonder if our investments are repaying what we're taking out.
If I may, yes, as a matter of fact, our balance in the foundation over the course of 2020 did increase, even though we took some money out. It increased about $60,000, so about 6%, even though we took some money out.
That's
Yep.
the way it should be.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Reverend Sandy. Yes, Marty, you have the floor. Go ahead and unmute.
Screaming, sell.
Say that again, Marty. I didn't catch that.
I'm screaming, sell.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you.
It would be a wonderful party if we did, but I don't think it would be responsible.
Amen. We have about 4 minutes left in our coffee hour, so I do want to make space for anyone who has questions. I see Reverend Nina is giving an applause. I think that's also raising her hand, so I'm going to give her the floor. Reverend Nina.
Yes, I just wondered if there's a job description for this position, this tech position, that we can access to share with people.
Yes, it is in formation now, and as soon as it is finalized, we will put that in our Friday email and take advantage of the many job boards. Bill has mentioned some and others at our disposal. Thank you, Reverend Nina.
Thank you. Okay.
Other questions? I so appreciate the engagement and the questions and the care of our community. This again is in preparation for our annual meeting that will occur on February 14th. The polity of our church is that our annual budget is approved by our vestry and presented to our annual meeting, to our congregation. So that presentation will occur at our annual meeting. And before that meeting, you will receive by our annual report that budget and the line by line statement of our 2020 end of year and our 2021 budget. We invite you to take a look at that. If you have any questions between now and then, and when you receive that, we invite you to reach out to Perry. If you don't have Perry's information, contact the church office and we'll make sure that you receive that.